All right, so now that we have this unwrapped, I'm going to click on it, hit W for my move tool, hold shift and move it over. Just make a copy. It doesn't matter. I'm going to attach it back, so it's okay. I'm going to hit F for front. And I'm going to kind of line this up how I might think that chair. I think it's probably going to look like that. I can tell. It's kind of squarish, maybe a little wider than it is deep. And let's go ahead and turn our edged faces on, and I'm in my perspective view. Okay, so what we want now is to make these crossbars. And before I do this, I'm going to, at some point we have to attach these. They need to be the same object, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Here's the attach button. I'm just going to click on attach and then click on the thing I want to attach. You want to make sure you turn your attach button back off when you're done so you don't accidentally attach something else. Okay, the other thing is okay, I've shown you how to do this. I've shown you how to, if you click here and extrude, we can get that, right? I'm going to undo that. What I want to do is show you another way to do that, and I'm going to click on all of these and just hit delete. So essentially we have a hole here, right? So if I click on border, I'll click on this border. I'm going to hold shift and I can drag this out. So before I do that though, let me undo all this. Before I do any of this with this object here, I want to click on this button, Preserve UVs, right? So we click on that. If I click on this unwrap and we show what we have here, it's all the same here. And we have this whole amount. It's so picky about selecting these things, right? Do we get all of it? So there it is, all there. Actually, while we have this here, I can explain to you a little bit about this offset. And it might actually be easier at this point when we don't have these crossbars. So we've selected this whole thing. I'm trying to see, there's no, oh, right there. Okay, so that. Now I think we have everything selected. Okay, so essentially this is sitting on top of the other one, right? It's a copy, right? So we had the one and we made a copy, and so it's sitting right on top. Eventually, well, it already is. We already attached it, so it's the same object. So the game engine's not going to like it when this is stacked. So what we do is we offset it. And you might have this button not toggled on. It might look like this. So if you toggle that on, you'll notice that the U and the V are at 0. The U and the V really just means X and Y. It's just we don't call it X and Y because we don't want to be confused with the X and Y, the XYZ 3D space out here. So we say UV so that we know that we're talking about the 2D unwrapped space. All right, so we have this. And this is the 0 to 1 space. If you remember your algebra, this really does tile out in all directions. So if I were to let's go to options, preferences. If I click on this tile bitmap, you will see that this is tiling out, and it will tile out as far as I say, you know, I want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and say 1 and uncheck this. So this 0 to 1 space will have the exact same image here and further out all the way. So we can push this over by saying -1, -1, and you can see it has moved it over 1 unit. So whatever map we have here will also be here, and that's fine. And this is the way a game engine would like it. We're going to put these crossbars there, and then once we do that, we'll stack it here, and then we'll offset 1 here. So let's do that next. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm also going to collapse this because I moved that over. And as an editable poly here. I'm going to preserve my UVs. And now I'm going to open this up and get my polygons and select the ones that I don't want. Delete. Okay, I'm going to go back to my border and select these borders. I'm holding Shift, well, I'm getting my Move tool, hitting W, holding Shift and moving those out. I'm going to get my vertex, and we are target welding. So you can see that this modeling business is pretty much the same thing over and over, and we are adding the detail as we go, creating the geometry as we go. And this is not only just to be efficient, but to be accurate, right? Why create two different sides? You run the risk of not making the same geometry, right? Get that one turned off. Curses. Come on now. There we go. All right, so that's one piece. But now we know that they're exactly the same. They can stack well. Okay, so now let's unwrap this real quick and get on to our edge loops. So I'm going to make sure I'm in my editable poly, not the sub-object, right? You shouldn't see any sub-object icon here. So I'll say Unwrap UVW. I'm going to open this. Here it was because we collapsed it and we preserved it. All right, so what we're seeing here now is these stretched out. So it would be like if we were looking right on it, we wouldn't notice they were there, right? So this is kind of what's going on. We'll have to see where it is. I can't see where it is right now. All right, so I'm going to get the edge tool, select all of these. Actually, I'm going to get the polygons, select all these. And I'm just turning it around to select it from a different angle because of the way it's projected. Okay, so it's all right here. You can't see it because it would be like you're looking down right on it, right? But what I'm going to do, oh, that one too. All right, so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to come up here to Tools. No, what is it? It's Mapping. Flatten Mapping. So I'm going to click on that and say OK. All right, so there it flattened those pieces out for me. And we're going to, let me get the element so I can move these. We're basically, and I'm also going to rotate them so that they're up and down this, going the same wood grain direction, right? So I want this to be the seam. Okay, so I will select here, get out of the element, select here and stitch. Get this element, move it over. All right, out of the element, this edge, stitch, this edge, stitch, and the back here, I'm going to have this be the seam. I think that will be the least noticeable. That one or this one. I mean, there's going to be a cushion here, so we won't really see that. But if it ever does fly around, either way, I'm going to go ahead and make this one be my seam. So that means I will click here, stitch, get my element so I can move this out of the way. Here, stitch, here, stitch. Okay, I'm going to select this. Tools, relax. And I can go edges. So there it's snapped in its little relaxed business. I'm going to shrink this down because I do know it's going to be about the same size as these, right? We don't want it to give them more pixels than the rest. And I also know that we can stack these. So let me get this element. And I'm going to make it about the same size as the other one. So if I put this on here, I'm going to get the side. This one has like a side thing, right? It goes left and right here. But I want to have this pivot point be in the upper right corner. So I can kind of size these in this way. All right, so that's a little off, but that's okay. Not the element, get the move tool. Kind of line them up here a little bit. It'll be okay. I know it will. All right, another little tool are these right here. So I'm going to get the vertex and I will show you how that works. So if I go in here and I select these two vertices and I select this, what it's going to do is you'll see they're off a little bit. So this will snap them together, right? Same with the top. If I got the top here, this is the horizontal one, snaps it. So I'm going to do that on both ends here. And I'm going to go ahead and line this up. Now there might be a little minor stretching because I am lining them up as opposed to letting them relax to their best state. But you'll see what I'm doing here. This is not a very major piece. It's kind of hidden. And I'm holding shift to kind of constrain that. Get the major big one. It's not that, whoa, I wanted all of it. It's not that most important of a part, for one, because it's kind of hidden. So I'm not too worried about it. I guess I'll put it about right there. Okay, so we have two of them here. We can stack one. So I'm just going to hold Alt and not have this one. I'll move that one. So I'm going to hold Alt, make sure all that I have is here, and say -1. So that's offset, okay? All right, so far so good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and collapse this again and preserve my UVs. So what we're going to do next is make our edge loops, right? All right,